We'd like to begin the regular meeting of the Kenner City Council for May 2nd, 2013. Please stand for the invocation. In light that today, May 2nd, is the National Day of Prayer, I'd like to have our opening invocation prayer for our nation. Almighty God, you had given us this good land for our heritage. We humbly ask you that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. Bless our land with honorable endeavor, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitude brought here out of the many nations and tongues. Endow with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in your name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to your law we may show forth your praise among the nations of earth. In times of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, do not allow our trust in you to fail. We ask all of this through your Son, Jesus our Lord. Amen. Councilwoman Brannigan, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I might also add that we lost a former member of City of Kenner employees, Mr. Clem Rue, passed away recently. We give our condolences to his family.
Madam Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. The consent agenda. Item 1, approval of minutes, the regular council meeting of April 18, 2013. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. We have none. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 1752/13, Chateau Estates Lakefront Civic Association to hold a public gathering for a block party on June 1st, 2013 from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. in the 500 block of Carmenere Drive. Item 4 is correspondence reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. We have none. Item 5 is acceptance rejection of bids requiring an expenditure of less than $5,000. Item 5A is a resolution accepting the responsive bid received from Pelican Graphics, LLC in the amount of $3,216.10 for the purchase of dance programs and invitations for the 2013 dance review in accordance with telephone bid number T13-2004 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 6 is change orders requiring an expenditure of less than $5,000. We have none. Item 7 is acceptance of committee findings for final passage. We have none. Item 8 is for subdivision of ordinances for final passage, and we have none.
Motion by Councilman on consent, Councilman Brannigan, second by Councilman Black. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Under the public appearance agenda this evening, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 11,442, an ordinance amending Chapter 16, Article 1 and 2 of the City of Kenner Code of Ordinances regarding vehicles for hire.
Motion by Councilman Denopoulos, second by Councilwoman DeFrancis to open a public hearing. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
We're now in a public hearing to discuss summary ordinance number 11,442. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address this matter, please come forward now. Motion by Councilman Denopoulos, second by Councilman DeFrancis to close the public hearing. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Motion by Councilman Denopoulos, second by Councilwoman DeFrancis to approve.
Madam Chairman, this evening we have a request to amend this item, and we're going to replace this ordinance in globo, please. If I could get an amendment of a motion and a second.
Motion by Councilman Denopoulos, second by Councilwoman DeFrancis.
On the amendment,
On the amendment,
you want to?
do you wish to discuss the amendment, or would you like to read the amendment first, please?
No, we're just going to do it in globo this evening.
Okay,
So I'll just take a vote, please.
okay. Please vote on the amendment.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to amend. Now, as amended,
Motion to approve by Councilman Denopoulos, second by Councilwoman DeFrancis. Councilman Denopoulos, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think, you know, this matter has been before the council several times and has been deferred so that everybody on the council could have a fair chance at digesting, because it's quite a lengthy documentation. It's almost 65 pages, and basically what it is just an overhauling of our basically it's our taxi cab or our vehicles for hire program that we have here in Kenner. You know, as a city, you know, we're allowed to create the justification and to create the laws that govern for hire transportation in Kenner. And of course, the last time that this council and this administration actually revisited that was almost 20 years ago. 20 what? 71. Golly, I wasn't even born then. Anyway, so and like all laws and like all departments and all things that we have to do, we have to kind of update them, and we have to get current with what the surrounding jurisdictions are doing. So basically, this covers a lot of aspects of things that in the some 45 years that we've had governed ground transportation here in Kenner, and it's actually included a lot of things and gives both the city some very clear stances on actually the vehicles, the age of the vehicles, the extensions that it can have on the vehicles, the code of conducts that the taxi cabs have to have, plus an understanding of our laws, and also that the CP&Cs are the property of the city of Kenner, and they can't be transferred. Just a couple of highlights that I'd like to go over. First of all, in this documentation, if you care to spend about 2 hours to read it, I mean, we identified a waiting list. We also indicate, you know, what the privilege is to use this CP&C is. We've included here domicile, because basically, you know, we want to actually govern the CP&Cs that actually are people who are actually doing businesses in Kenner, okay? And right now, we have a moratorium on CP&Cs, and it's for a good reason, because, once again, we really don't want to govern somebody who comes for us to a CP&C who actually lives in St. Charles Parish or in New Orleans or in Jefferson Parish. We want to govern what's those businesses and those for hire vehicles are in the city of Kenner. We've identified that as well. What we also did was we actually put a police action in here as well. There's actually a section here that actually calls for, in case there's actually an unlawful use of a for hire vehicle in the city of Kenner, it gives direction to the police department, code enforcement, how to handle that situation. And there's some stiff penalties and some stiff fines on it. Also contained within here is also not only the age limitations of the vehicle, but also, you know, you need to look at the code of conduct. And that's basically what the traveling public wants to see. They want to see a professional ground transportation company or companies and cars being able to handle, because let's face it, the airport is in Kenner. So it identifies, you know, if you have a felony, you can't hold a CP&C. And also the fact of the matter is you can't trade this CP&C. It's the property of Kenner, so there's no commercial value other than the fact that we issue that privilege to you, okay? So a lot of these things have been identified in here. It really tightens up on a lot of the laws that are out there that we've had, and it just completely updates our entire program that we have for ground transportation here in Kenner. So I would just ask that the council, and I would like to thank Tamithia Shaw in the literally months and months and months of tireless work and research that it is, and the rest of the taxi pad committee, which is Councilman Gregory Carroll from District 1 and Councilwoman DeFrancis from District 4, and myself on that committee, for actually banding together and getting this little section of our code, I guess it is under code, just get it clear, and get it very understanding and get it up to date with the laws that we have. So I want to thank the council for taking a look at this. I asked for the vote on it. I think that Tamika has done a fantastic job. She's been available to answer all the questions in here, and I can tell you that all the little loopholes that are out there have all been tightened up, okay, so that this is a very concise program for ground transportation here in Kenner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Denopoulos. Councilwoman DeFrancis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Again, I can't emphasize enough, and I think Councilman Denopoulos just mentioned it as well. Ms. Shaw was absolutely, unbelievably a part of this, not only a part of this, without her, nothing would have happened. She did the research. She worked with us. We even had a meeting this afternoon. Councilman Denopoulos had one with Ms. Shaw, as well as I did. She has been tireless in working on this project, and believe me, without her help, nothing would have occurred. This committee could have spun its wheels for who knows how long, and nothing would have transpired. But because of Ms. Shaw, her dedication, her knowledge, and her commitment to this project, it has come to fruition here tonight. And Ms. Shaw, you mentioned something this afternoon, and I don't think Councilman Denopoulos touched on it. You mentioned in my office something about maybe having taxi cab drivers get a booklet of some kind. So I'll let you finish that statement. Would you mind explaining to them what we're talking about?
Yes, I spoke to Councilman Denopoulos as well as yourself about giving, like every employee that works for the City of Kenner gets an employee handbook. When this passes, we're going to create a handbook for the taxi cab drivers so they can be familiar with the rules and regulations governing our vehicles for hire in the City of Kenner. This overhaul also allowed us to change laws that needed to be changed. Like I said, we haven't done a mass overhaul since 1971. We identified some things like insurance. There are compulsory limits that need to be in place that were not in place. We've actually done that, and also what we did was we put something that if the state law changes, we don't necessarily have to go back into it. We can administratively just tell the taxi cab drivers when they have to change when the state law changes because it's authorized by this ordinance. So, and also in the parishes of Orleans and Jefferson, they were sued because they did not have wheelchair accessible taxi cabs available. We were not sued, but however, we have included, and I want to make sure everyone knows that we included in our legislation provisions for wheelchair accessible taxis so that when the traveling public comes in and any disabilities they may have, we may also be able to transport them as equally as you transport those without disabilities. And I want to thank the Office of Citizens with Disabilities in Jefferson Parish and Ms. Catherine Hoover, who has been instrumental in helping us do this. She's also worked on the committee in New Orleans, so I want to thank her for her assistance because without her, we could not have completed that portion of the vehicle for hire legislation. So I want to thank her publicly for that.
Thank you so much. And again, this is a win-win for everyone. It's a win-win for the people of Kenner. It's a win for our taxi cab drivers. And it's a win for this council and this administration as well, because we've taken the steps needed to ensure the public safety and that they're well, and that the taxi cabs that they take, they feel comfortable in, that they're not going to be inappropriately asked to spend more than they should, that they can, again, even have credit cards, use their credit card in these taxi cabs. A lot of those things that have been taken for granted in other cities and that we weren't able to offer the people of this city and the surrounding area. And all of this was done, again, with the help of Ms. Shaw and the rest of the committee members. So I want to thank all the other members of the committee as well for all their hard work. And I want to emphasize one last point that Councilman Denopoulos made, and that is that you cannot transfer your CPNC. Please remember that your CPNC licenses are privileges. They're not a right guaranteed by the, they're not a right guaranteed by the City of Kenner. That means you cannot sell them, you can't assign them, you can't mortgage them, or in any other way transfer them. And that's important because many times people think, oh, it's my license, so I can do with it that which I want to do, and that's not the case. So I wanted to emphasize that as well. Ms. Shaw and members of this committee, you all did a marvelous job. Thank you again, Ms. Shaw, and I know the public thanks you as well. Thank you.
And thank you, all three of y'all, for putting so much time into this, which started out just a basic complaint from one of the taxi cab drivers in Kenner about it, and it blossomed out to where we were able to get this ordinance in place, and so a lot of good is going to come out of it, but a lot of hard work went into it also. Thank you. Hearing that, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 9B is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 11,510, an ordinance granting to TW Telecom of Louisiana LLC a non-exclusive revocable license to install, operate, maintain, repair, and replace fiber optic cable and/or coaxial cable and associated equipment for voice, data, and video transmission service in and around city buildings located at 500 Veterans Boulevard, KPD Headquarter Complex, 1939 Reverend Richard Wilson Drive, KPD Training Facility, and 1801 Williams Boulevard, City Hall Complex, and providing for related matters.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Stagney to open a public hearing. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
We're now in a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 11,510. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council at this time, please come forward. Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Stagney to close the public hearing. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Stagney to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 9C is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 11,527, an ordinance approving a pawn shop in a C2 General Commercial Zoning District and a mixed-use commercial building located on Lot 16A1, Square 177, Briarwood Subdivision, Kenner, Louisiana.
Motion by Councilman Stagney, second by Councilwoman Brannigan to open a public hearing. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
We're now in a public hearing to discuss summary ordinance number 11,527. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address this matter?
Madam Chairman.
Mr. Hebert?
Thank you, Madam President. The property is located in the Williams Square Commercial Center at 3405 Williams Boulevard in Council District 2. Williams Square contains two multi-use commercial and buildings.
Excuse me, Mr. Hebert, I don't think your microphone is on.
Yeah, it's on.
The light's on.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, well then speak a little bit closer into the mic if you don't mind.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
That's a little better.
All right, the property is zoned C2 General Commercial. The area contains a mixture of commercial uses to the north and south, general commercial uses east of Williams Boulevard, and two-family dwellings and neighborhood commercial uses that are located west along Florida Avenue. Now, evaluation of the area has determined that there are no existing pawn shop uses located within 1,000 feet of the subject. There are 3 residential uses located along Florida Avenue that are an estimated 250 feet from the subject. The residential uses are located along an area of Florida Avenue that is zoned general commercial. The pawn shop is located in a multi-use building nearest Williams Boulevard and buffered from Florida Avenue by the second and larger multi-use building at the site. The operation of the pawn shop use should not result in excessive noise, vibration, odor, or traffic for the area. The owner of the shop has provided documentation that at least 50% of the public space in the store will be dedicated to the display of items for sale. There will be no permanent outdoor display areas, sales, or storage areas of any merchandise, and that they will not sell or loan money on firearms. They comply with the criteria for a pawn shop. Based on that, the Planning Department and Planning Commission both recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Hebert. We have a motion to close the public hearing. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Motion to approve by Councilman Stagney, second by Councilwoman Brannigan. Councilman Stagney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. This was part of some legislation that I initiated both with regards to pawn shops and churches because we had such a numerous amount of vacant commercial property throughout the city, and we needed to expand those uses. And in both those instances, commercial properties, including their parking lots, were good venues for both of those. This one specifically is on Williams Boulevard, and as Mr. Hebert said, it is buffered from the residential zoning by a street and by the back businesses along Florida, which are located on Williams, but the back is on Florida. I got one phone call. The planning department put out letters to, I don't know how many residents, but everybody within a certain square footage in that area. And I got one phone call, and it was in favor of this project. So I had no negative feedback. And again, it's buffered from the residential community by a street of commercial and some businesses at backs. And I would ask for your support.
Thank you, Councilman Stagney. Hearing no other discussion, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. Item 12A is summary ordinance number 11,518, an ordinance amending ordinance 9554 regarding athletic facility booking policies. Madam Chairman, we've received a request this evening to indefinitely defer this item.
Okay, motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman Black for an indefinite deferral. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 12B is summary ordinance number 11,519, an ordinance designating and renaming Lions Field as Sal Playa Field.
Motion by Councilman Stagney, second by Councilman Black. Councilman Stagney.
Thank you, Madam President. Unfortunately, in December of last year, one of our favored sons passed, grew up in Hanson City, 75 years old, married to his beautiful wife of 54 years, Mr. Loris Plyer. Mr. Sal was an icon in the recreation department. He was a coordinator for boys and girls sports, I think for over 29 years. The people that showed up at his service were people that, you know, grew up in the city of Kenner, elected officials, and many, many family and friends. And they all had wonderful stories about the things that Mr. Sal had done to not only mentor some young children, but also bring kids together that necessarily weren't the same color. And I appreciate everything that he did. I'm one of those people who love recreation. He was here way before I was. But I understand that he did a lot of his coaching and mentoring across the street here at Moyzan Field, which is right across the street from City Hall. And after speaking with some council members and some time ago with the mayor, we thought that that was an ideal place to name a field after him, somebody who grew up, was born and raised in the city of Kenner, grew up here, and helped so many young children go further in their lives. So I know some council members want to speak. I'm happy that I can help be a part of this. He was a part of so many people's lives, and this is a way that people beyond all of us will remember somebody who helped people and spent his whole life doing that. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Stagney. Councilman Denopoulos, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, Councilman Stagney, thanks for bringing this to this council. I mean, Sal has been just an icon in the athletic department in the city of Kenner, you know, from its, you know, conception to even to now, to what you see what this, you know, what our recreation department has done. And I know when I started coaching at about 25 years old, Sal was, I mean, he was my supervisor. He was one of the zone supervisors that were, you know, walking around, and I'll tell you, he was definitely my mentor. I mean, I just wanted to get involved and coach kids, and I tell you, he definitely had a sense about him. Kindness was, I mean, it was never, he never said a bad word about anybody. I mean, he was just, and his knowledge, it's just his particular knowledge, you know, from all the experiences in life. I mean, you could sit down there and talk with him, and it was just unbelievable what he knew, and you know, how Kenner grew and how Kenner expanded its recreation department to today. And, you know, I just want to thank Councilman Stagney. I mean, we've been doing this a lot lately. We have been losing a lot of our favorite sons over the last 2 years here in Kenner, and Sal is definitely one of them. And I thank, you know, I thank God that I actually had the time on this earth to actually spend time with him and learn from him. And of course, his wife, who's here tonight. It's just we just be sadly missed. And I'm glad that we're able to start naming some of these fields and some of these backstops and some of these courts in our gyms so that the future generations can remember the history of who built the Recreation Department as it is today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I, too, would like to thank Councilman Stagney for bringing this dedication to Mr. Sal. And I, too, as a child that grew up in the Kenner Recreation Department, recognize all the support and coaching that he had for me. But for me, I knew Mr. Sal before I actually became involved in the recreation. Obviously, as was stated, he was a lifelong resident of District 1. I went to school at Our Lady Perpetual Help with his children. Mr. Loris drove all of us to the games. You know, so I knew Mr. Sal much before we were the member at Our Lady Perpetual Help Church. So he was someone more than a recreation figure, but someone that was one of my mentors within the city of Kenner. And, you know, so I knew him on that level much better than from the recreation. And I do know the most important thing is him as a person, that someone that regardless of your economic situation, your skin tone, your color, your religion, whatever, Mr. Sal was supportive of you and would support you in any endeavor that you wanted to do. So, you know, with the school, with church, with the recreation department, you know, as a young man, as a man now, I was blessed to be able to have Mr. Sal in my life to help me become a better man that I am today. Thank you, Mr. Loris. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Councilwoman DeFrancis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Sal not only gave his time and love to the people in his family who he cared about and loved so very much, but he also gave not just his time, but his heart to the children of the city, and he made a difference in their lives. And I know if he were here today, so many of those kids would be here and saying, you made a difference in our lives. You changed our lives because you were there for us. You know, I worked in the school system, and there's so many children whose home lives are so disruptive, who don't have someone they can talk to, someone they can go to or look up to. And Mr. Sal was there for them. When he was working with them, they knew he cared about them, they knew he loved them, and he was there for them. And if they needed something, they could ask him and talk to him about the problems they had. And so we don't even know how many lives he touched because of his kindness and the love he has had for children. So when we think of him, we think of that, the love, the kindness, the heart that he had. And I was privileged to know him, and I know his family misses him, and I know the entire city misses him.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brannigan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And all I will add to that is that most of us up here, we're playground brats ourselves, and we're coaches ourselves, so you couldn't help but know Sal Playa. But we understand the amount of time that it takes in your life to be at the playground, to coach other people's children, and what kind of impact, what kind of dedication, and what kind of sacrifice that is when your own family is at home at times. So for someone to have committed themselves to playground life beyond the times of their own children or their interest in the playground is such a gift to our community. So we thank you for the sacrifice that your family made for his passion. And this is just a small way to remind those who are up and coming, those children, those coaches, of the people that have paved the way for the playgrounds that we have, for the programs that we have, and for all of those children. And I don't know that I spoke to anybody that he coached, but all of those people who he made a difference in their lives are making a difference in our community today, as you can see. If he coached these people that are on the council, I'd say that that's a huge contribution. So thank you so much for your family's sacrifice. And again, I can't imagine the 29 years that he gave to the playground. It's the least that we can do. So thank you.
Thank you. And I wanted to be the last one to who spoke because I guess I knew him better than anybody because we grew up on the same street. And he was a great athlete, a great coach, great husband, great father, great brother, great neighbor. But the person himself, he was a great individual, caring, giving, funny. You never left a conversation without him without laughing about something. Practical joker, just a great guy. Johnny, his brother, you had a great mentor. What happened? Teasing, of course. But he just was a great athlete and a giver on the football team at Kenner, on the football team and baseball team at East Jefferson. Always involved in everything. Great supervisor. Everybody knew they could go to him. So Dolores, don't be sad today. We're happy. We're honoring someone who well deserves it. And he's a Hanson City boy, and I'm a Hanson City girl. And if you don't know what Hanson City is, it's a little section of Kenner where there's 4 streets. We're practically, everybody's Italian, and everybody spoke Italian across the way, and there was a grocery store in every corner, and everybody was related to each other, and it was a great place to grow up. Our playground was a levee. Nobody had anything, but we didn't know that. We just had ball games all the time on the front yards and just enjoyed ourselves and got to know each other very well. I'm proud to have known him. I'm proud to have been a part of his life, and you all should be very proud yourselves of the memory that lingers on through him. Mayor?
Johnny, I don't think Jeannie was really kidding, okay? No, I just want to say that, I mean, y'all said it all about Sal's recreation background, but the fact that he was a devoted man of God and that he did so much for OLPH Church. I can remember when my uncle passed away in '95, in October, he called me in 1996 and said, you know, a member of your family has always participated in St. Rosalie carrying the statue, so you need to take that up now. And I'll never forget him for that because I've done it ever since then. And he's just had a great impact on a lot of lives in the city of Kenner, and this is the absolute least we can do for a great man like him. But I know he's in a great place with a good coach, probably playing a great ball game right now. So.
And your grandfather gave him his nickname.
Oh, yes, Mookie.
By the name of Mookie. So we have to say Sal Mookie Plyer because the reason he was called Mookie is because he had these big cow eyes. And we always used to say he's got the long lashes. And I said, those cow eyes are going to get you a nickname. And his coach, Joe Yenny at East Jefferson, gave him the name of Mookie, and it stuck. So with that, Councilman Stagney, would you like to close?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Dolores, I also want to recognize on behalf of all of us in the mayor's office that he was not the only one who gave service to our community and to the church that many of us go to. Thank you for all that you do for OLPH, the St. Joseph's Altar, the cookies, and I know you had some help with Miss Bertha, and I think our own council president this year helped out with that, and they were delicious. Mr. Mayor, Ms. Dolores had asked me, she has a jacket, Kenner High School jacket with some patches, and she would like to donate it to the city if there's some place that you can display it so all can see it. Okay. Well, we appreciate it. We want you to know that we love and appreciated Mr. Sal, and many people will for many years to go forward. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 12C is summary ordinance number 11,529, an ordinance amending section 3-22 of the Code of Ordinances regarding issuance of permits on a probationary period.
Motion by Councilman Reyno, second by Councilman DeFrancis. Ms. Shaw, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. In being over occupational licenses, we're always asked to be more progressive and to help our businesses out throughout the city. The state ATC Alcohol, Tobacco, and Control Office has now started issuing temporary ABO licenses while they're still doing the checks, but to allow the businesses to start their processes. And those businesses have been coming to the city of Kenner saying, I have my temporary ABO, what can you do for me? We have something that's on the books, but it says mayor and board of aldermen. That's how old it is, because it doesn't even reflect the council people here. But we wanted to actually do the same thing for the city of Kenner, just for a temporary ABO license, so that the business owners can start moving. Now, what the state is doing, they're only for 30 to 45 days. We've never seen any longer than 45 days. If we would issue them, they would be for the same time period. So if the state's temporary ABO license would end on June 1st, ours will also end on June 1st. It does not take away any of the powers of the council. It would still allow the council to review any and all ABO licenses. But we want to do is, like I said, be more progressive to help our businesses. We want to entice businesses here. We want our community to be safe also. So we're still going to do the same procedure and looking at the businesses doing background checks. They'll still have to follow all the same procedures. It's just about getting the process started and helping those businesses to start. And we also put in here that just because we issue a probationary license does not mean that you're guaranteed final approval, because it is subject to review by the council.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Councilman Denopoulos, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I can tell you, first, when I saw this, I was kind of apprehensive. I could say, wait a second. I said, I'd prefer, 7 sets of eyes and an administration sitting back and looking at documentation, especially when you're serving alcohol. But once again, too, is you have to look at being friendly to businesses, okay? And as fast as we want to fill up our commercial, vacancy that we have, I mean, some of these businesses can get up and running in 2-3 weeks. I mean, and once again, it's probationary. So, and in the past, we couldn't even approve it in that 2 or 3 week period. And to fledgling businesses, I mean, that type of revenue stream to not be able to get it for, a month, 45 days, there's a layover. I mean, it could hurt a business. So this is a good, friendly business ordinance here, and I'm going to be supportive of it, because once again, Ms. Shaw has agreed that, once again, we are going to look at it, and it's only probationary, and the state's trying to do it. And let's face it, people come to Louisiana for food and fun. I mean, we're a destination city, and I can tell you all these, these places are popping up all over our city. So I'm going to be supportive of this. I don't see where it takes away from our final authority as a council to not approve an ABO license. This is just to get them up, started, and running. And once again, it parallels what the state's doing. And once again, it is for a defined period of time, and it's going to be the same time that the state allows. And then at that point, we can, they have to move forward with the proper process.
That's correct. It's going to expedite out also, because sometimes our businesses take a little longer getting everything. It's going to make them expedite this process, because they have to do it on a state basis. So we're going to, like I said, we just want to be proactive. And it's only upon the presentment of the states. So someone can't just say, they're seriously going to send it to me. They have to actually give us the actual temporary license from the state for us to do it. So it's not for everyone who wants to. You have to get your temporary license for the state for us to even consider giving you a temporary ABO license in the city of Kenner.
State's got to come first, and then we come second. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Denopoulos. Councilman Moreno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. How many licenses do we issue in the city of Kenner in a year?
We would have to break it down, because you have package license and then you have those bars, but we don't have that many bar licenses for this. We have a lot of restaurant licenses, but not just bar licenses for the city of Kenner. And I'm sorry, I don't have that number in front of me, but it's not a lot that, I think would hurt the city to let them let this process go forward.
Okay. Well, I'm going to support this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Stagney.
Thank you, Madam President. If this were not in place, what's the normal time frame that we have to issue an ABO license?
It's taken, honestly, sometime up to 4 months to get everything together, and we've had businesses who have been screaming at us, especially when the state, they've always had this available because they're trying to expedite businesses opening in the state to get the revenue on the state side, too. We've always been the one who's been lagging behind, so that's why we're coming forward to ask If we can, like I said, and they're still going to have to get all the approvals that they get now. This is not going to change. It's just a matter of, giving them the temporary ABO. And like I said, if they're up and running, they're not going to want to shut down because they're making money. And like I said, some businesses that come to us saying because of lag times and this, that, and the other, that sometimes it hurts their business and sometimes they can't, just survive thereafter.
Yeah, I kind of wish that the language instead of probationary would say temporary. To me, that means two different things. Let me ask you this. What checklist do you go through before, if you're the one issuing this, what checklist do you go for before you would give a probationary license?
Well, what the state does is they check zoning. So you still have to check zoning. And then we look for the ads that have to go in the newspaper. We also do background. You have to get background checks with the city of Kenner. So some things we're checking, like I said, even during the probationary status, we're checking.
Do they
And the
have-
distance, it's, like I said, distance is going to be checked anyway because we can't let something open on a temporary basis that wouldn't be allowed on the fine.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Let's say, somebody wants to set up within the 300 feet of a church or a school.
No.
You're not even going to do that on a probationary?
No, because just the zoning still has to be, and the state is checking zoning also. They've had some.
They have
like
the
I said,
same requirement?
They have the same requirements. They only do a different measurement. They still have the 300 feet, but they're still checking the zoning. And like I said, we're going to still check zoning before we even proceed because we don't want someone to open up a business and tell them later, oh, guess what, you're within 300 feet of a church. So no, we wouldn't do that. We would always send it to planning first to check and then issue the temporary ABO from there.
Okay, this ordinance, unless I missed it, how long can somebody have a probationary license?
The probationary license is going to only be to the same time as the state gives their probationary license. So if the state ends theirs on June 1st, 2013, we're going to end ours on June 1st, 2013.
Or is there a cutoff period that the state has, or they only do it for 1 month, 2 months, 4 months?
The longest we've seen that people have brought in has been the 45-day period. We've
Oh,
never
okay.
seen anything longer. I did look at an application on the state's webpage for a temporary Class R restaurant, and this one says a permit be issued for 60 days. So apparently,
No, that's short.
yeah, but it's
My only concern would be that if there was some temporary license issued by the state and we continue to let someone operate without doing all of our due diligence
Yeah.
for 6 months, 8 months, a year, but that wouldn't happen. You're saying no matter what, it's still going to come before all of us
Yeah.
and do
Yes,
all the
we're
back.
still going to do the same procedure that we're doing now. It's not going to be, like I said, it's just for the temporary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the city of Canada is definitely pro-business, and we want you all to come to our city, but we want to make sure you follow all our laws. So I think this legislation plays a big part in that. So thank you very much for your time and efforts. Councilman DeFrancis, you have the floor.
I'm going to be very quick. I really thank you, Ms. Shaw, and even Councilman Stagney for this discussion because I had many of the same qualms, and you've answered the question. We want to be pro-business, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we do things the right way. So thank you, because again, we're making sure that our citizens are well protected. Thank you.
And Councilwoman Brannigan, you had the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Quick question. You said earlier to Councilmember Stagney that we only allow it as long as the state allows for that length of time. Do they have a maximum amount of time?
I don't know what their maximum amount of time is. Like I said, the ones that have been brought to the city of Kenner as temporary and they've tried to get us to do it, we've only seen a max of 45 days.
Is there any language in the ordinance that says that we just mirror the state's deadlines? Or do we put, except not to exceed a certain amount of time? Or, I mean, what if the state changes their policy? I don't know if we necessarily want to be tied. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to put a time period in, I wouldn't be opposed in it. But like I said, we're just trying to be proactive with the businesses. If you want to put a probationary period not to exceed 60
Yeah, I would say
days.
not to exceed 60 days, only because if the state changes their policies for some reason, I mean, I don't know how that information filters through you to get back to us or to whatever body is in place at the time.
Well, we attend CLEs, so we get information because we go to the Capitol to get CLEs, but I'm always checking the state's website because of the fact that we worked hand in hand. The agents come here. if they need our help with anything, to go maybe shut a business down or even to inquire. So we work hand in hand with them, and so that's how we told them about this, and they explained to us what the process is as far as trying to expedite the opening of businesses. But they explained to us they're still doing their due diligence and making sure these people are reputable people to open a business with alcohol. So, I mean, we can put an amendment in if you would like to say not to exceed 60 days.
I think that would be appropriate, only because if it's dependent on somebody else's policy and their policy changes, it takes away our ability to regulate if need be.
Okay, I think the last sentence can just read,
Okay,
not to
so-
exceed, you know, this permit should not exceed 60 days.
All right, motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Stagney, second by Councilman Brannigan, second by Councilman Stagney to amend. Does everybody understand the amendment? Councilman Denopoulos, you want to speak on the amendment only?
On the amendment, I just want to get clear here. If the state decides to reject their probationary period, we cannot issue a license. They have to have a state license first.
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
does this, I mean, is this redundant? I mean, to that point? I mean, I just need to know, because, I mean, if they change their policy and decide they're not going to issue the probationary licenses, then we can't do it either.
No, because it
Yeah.
says that we can
Yeah.
only do it based on them giving us their
Right.
probationary licenses.
Right, so all I'm saying is.
I think
that-
Councilwoman Brannigan's concern was that, let's say the state changed their policy, say, well, we're going to do 120 days. Do we want to do 120 days in the city of Kenner?
Okay.
And I think that's why she wanted to put some type of limit.
So if they go to
I'm not going
one-
to speak for her, but that's what
So,
was my
to understand the
understanding.
amendment, if they decide to change their policy and go to 120 days,
We're going to still
that we would go to 120 days?
No,
no,
she's,
60.
No.
she's saying
No.
60 days will be the limit.
Okay.
We're allowing them to do it, but we're still putting the limit on for 60 days.
Thank you, just want to clarify. Thank you.
Please.
And I'm sorry, Councilwoman Brannigan, I didn't want to speak for you.
So,
Yeah,
so the
but you
amendment
did,
is, so
but you
the
did.
amendment is 60 days. Please vote on the amendment.
Madam
On-
Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
On the legislation as amended, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution appointing Mr. Chad Held to the Municipal Fire and Police Civil Service Board of the City of Kenner to fill the vacancy created by Mr. John Schnauder, said term to expire on July 30th, 2015.
Motion by Councilman Brannigan, second by Councilman Black. Is Mr. Held in the audience? Okay. Well, we thank you for serving in this capacity. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 11,520, an ordinance increasing the maximum contract amount authorized by ordinance number 10,146 for the contract with New Arrow Industries Incorporated, doing business as Arrow Fence, for fencing to be installed at various facilities on an as-needed basis for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilwoman Brannigan, second by Councilman Reynaud. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 11,521, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Elite Portable Restrooms and Showers Incorporated for the rental of portable toilets and associated cleaning services on an as-needed basis in an amount not to exceed $25,000 per year for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilman Brannigan, second by Councilman Stagney. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15C is summary ordinance number 11,522, An ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Audiovisual Imagineering Incorporated in the amount of $42,000 to furnish and install spherical mirror projection system and graphics laptop computer for the Kenner Planetarium in accordance with seal bid number 13-6134 for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilman Carroll. Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have some questions on this 15C. It appears we had one bidder, and, you know, 6 bids were sent out, and only one of them actually bid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I think I've asked this before. I mean, you know, we put in our bid specs that they have to put up a bid bond, and do we really think that that's necessary? You know, we want to try to get more bidders out. So, Teresa? Is there any way that we can?
We've always executed bonds. It's either an annual contract, $500.
Hold on a second, hold on a second.
Teresa, I'm sorry, I didn't have your
We
mic
have
on.
all,
It's on, baby. Go ahead.
I know, but I got this in my hand. But anyway,
Put it back.
I broke it.
A
I'm
rare
sorry.
find.
We have always asked for bid bonds, always.
Put
It's
it
either been
back.
5% or like a $500 bid amount. And why would I not ask for bid? I've always done it. It's a part of our policy.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can get more people to bid on these things, so we're really looking at, you know, I mean, one person out of 6.
Well,
You know, we've got to change something.
actually-
Something's not working here.
That particular item, there's probably very few people that do that.
Right.
Am I correct?
It is. I mean, we did send it out to all the companies that we've
That we
dealt
knew.
with the planetarium. So specifically, this item is more of it's a digital projector that's going to help us enhance the experience of the things that we could show at the planetarium. For example, every single year we go out, we spend about $15,000 a year to get to lease a movie. This year it's Hurricane on the Bayou. Every year we change it out. But we have a 70-millimeter film projector in the planetarium. The problem's coming into is that now there's only really one company in the country that makes that type of films for the projector that we currently have in the planetarium.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to update to digital. But this is really it's just a tight field because there's not a lot of people that are out there making projectors for planetariums and things that full dome planetariums.
Right, but this is a digital that we're installing.
Correct.
So it seems to me like they would have, and even if there's only a handful of people across the whole United States that sells these, it seems like most of those people would want to bid because there's not a lot, you know, I mean, how many of these things do you bid a year?
Right.
You know?
Oh, no, it's definitely that way. And again, I just don't think, I mean, we sent it to the ones that we have knowledge of that do anything with the planetarium. The bid packages were sent to them. And for one reason or another, whether it be, you know, we're not sure why they didn't bid, but in fact, that we did give them the information and the availability to bid on this.
And I also go on the internet. The department gives me a list of people, but I don't stop there. I go on the internet and I search for more people, more vendors.
Yeah.
And so I have searched on the internet for this particular item, and
And I'm not questioning that because you have 6 people that you sent the bids out. I guess what I'm questioning is why aren't these people bidding, and can we find out why they're not bidding? Is it because of our bid bond? Is it because our bid specs are different from what they see everywhere else in the country? I don't know. I don't know what the answers are. I'm just trying to look at it that when we look at these things that we have more than one person or company bidding on these. That's my only.
Councilman Rayno, I'll have my department do that tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'll get back to you
Okay.
on a response that I got from the
Thank you
the
so
vendors.
much.
And let me just tell you, Councilman Reno, if anybody knows my past history, that's been one of my pet peeves. It just sticks in my craw that doesn't anybody want to work with this, do municipal work? I mean, that's what I was thinking at first, because we have people with carpet, we have recreational business, air conditioning. We have so many people that do not bid. And I just was wondering if it was, at first I had thought maybe it was a flaw in something, but in our bids, or bid laws or what have you, but it's just, especially after Katrina, we had nobody bidding on work. And it was beyond my comprehension as why people wouldn't do more biddings. But that has been going on, that has been happening all over the United States. I guess people just don't
I'll tell you,
bother bidding in municipalities,
We
municipal
definitely
work.
wish they would have more people bid on it, because then obviously
Absolutely,
the
because we
prices
get a better
come down.
price.
So, I
There's
mean,
no doubt about that, yes.
so when we try to submit, I know from our department standpoint, and I know many of the other departments, we try to submit as many names as we possibly can to send it to any. If they even have a portion of their company that does something similar to what we're trying to do, we send them a list. And again, that's why we tried to send them at least, in this case, 5 or 6 people to get, this type of response. But it just hasn't, I mean, and this goes back to, like you said, fencing. It goes back to all the other items that we have. It just seems
Right.
to be the same. The gym floors, another prime example. That just opened, and we just opened one again for Wentwood, and there was one bidder. Same situation. I mean, we sent it to several companies. They're just not bidding on it.
I just wish we could survey those companies that didn't respond or didn't bid to find out why they're not bidding, so that and get that information back to
Done
us
that
so that
too.
we can see,
I've done that too.
Well-
They just said some of them said, oh, we didn't even realize we received the bid, the request
And I
for
was going
bid.
to tell you
It
that
just-
sometimes it falls through the cracks at the.
I called them and asked
A
them
lot
why.
a lot of it has to do with insurance requirements. It costs for these vendors to have these insurance that we require. Some of them don't want to put up that money that it's going to take to meet our requirements. It's not the bid bond, I can guarantee you that.
Okay.
It's insurance requirements, maybe specifications that are technical, which they need to be because they have to address certain problems. I mean, our specifications are generic, but yet we have to also make sure that they meet everything that's needed.
Right.
So,
Okay, well, thank you.
Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And Mr. Maricoli, if you would please, sir, you kind of touched briefly upon it as it related to the Rivertown area and the planetarium, that the old system, which was very antiquated, we literally had to go out of the country before to get the equipment or the moves to be able to show. And this was another project along for the CDBG, Mr. Stagney, Mr. Denopolis, and Mr. Rell, that we worked together to try to improve the overall aspect of Rivertown. And if you, it's good just to tell a little bit more about where we were and where we are now, and what are some of the advantages that we have now that we didn't have before.
Well, several of the good things about the new digital projector. Right now, as I said a minute ago, when we get a film, we get it to lease for 1 year. With the new digital films, in a lot of the cases, we get either a lifetime where we could show the same film. Once we purchase it, it's ours for a lifetime. Or if they have some kind of agreement where it would be a certain amount of years. But the minimum that we found in the majority of these films is about 5 years. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to build a library so that we can kind of cater more to the specific topics, whether schools want to come and watch certain educational topics, or groups of kids or people in the community, whatever. We have a more of a library that we can offer to show these type of educational films. It gives us the ability to, right now, if we're in the middle of a film and something happens, let's say the film tears or something happens to the film, we have to physically take it off, repair it, and then wind the whole thing. We can't like rewind it and start it back over, where with digital, in the middle of this, we could stop the production or the show, and we could start another show if we have to change it or things to that nature. This should really limit the amount of times that we have any problems with the films. There's just so many more titles now. Everything's going to digital. I mean, even TVs, high definition, all these things that are coming out. That is going to be the benefit is where we can utilize these to get more into the modern spectrum of the things that are being offered just in general, you know, with video and everything is going digital, basically. And so everything that we're doing it's an enhancement. You know, it's just going to be a very good experience for anybody that wants to come in. They can almost cater their tours to what they're studying at the time. So it gives us more options to promote the planetarium and really to try to get other groups and people. You know, and the best part is we could hit a group that can come back 3 or 4 times now instead of coming once, saying, I've seen everything and stop. So there's just some of the benefits that we have there. Again, the digital is cheaper, the maintenance of it, now things are going there. It's just a lot of things that are benefits to this.
Yes, and those are the obvious, you know, additions that would benefit the Rivertown area. Let me ask you another question, not being the techno person, but will this facility and the upgrades be able to cross over to, say, other departments? We're getting ready to start hurricane season. Is there an ability, will there be the ability to be able to use that facility with the upgrades to enhance or to be able to project information that we would use? Could we do that?
We actually can do that if we wanted to have a class or something in there from our standpoint, if it was a PowerPoint presentation or things that could be on the screen. It's not necessarily this projector that will do that. This is more of the full dome that is going to, you know, that'll give us the enhancement of the full dome. But the thing is, this will give us the opportunity. You know, we having hurricane season come up. Doug, we can go watch Hurricane on the Bayou and educate us. But the things like that, yeah, we could get more things that will be more relevant to what's going on. But to answer your question, yes, that will be something that we'll be able to afford to some of the other departments and things in there.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Councilman Stagney. All right. Councilman Denopoulos?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, one question, Teresa, maybe you can help me out here, if you're still here, or maybe you can help me out. When we have bids, like for a particular piece of equipment, okay, and we see that there's only one bidder and it's at $42,000, I would kind of like to see some document from your department or whatever department it may be, public work, just to give me a guesstimation what you think that piece of equipment should cost us, okay? Because this is my problem, okay? And I had this problem back when I was bidding out the Wentwood concession stand. You know, the architect said, you know, it should come in at a certain price. It came in way over, and we had to rebid it and finally got the price that we wanted. So if this piece of equipment on the internet, if you look at it, search it, and it's, you know, it's a $55,000 piece of equipment and we got to bid at 42, well, I guess it makes my comfort factor with one bidder buying it for 42. But if you look at the internet and that piece of equipment's 35, then I'm very uncomfortable about giving that contract or that purchase order to that company for 42. So maybe we can get some sort of a guesstimation. Maybe something that can be, you know, I mean, administration, and this is actually a question to Keith Conley and administration as well. If we can kind of integrate what they think.
I can actually answer that. When we do go out for the bidding process and we put these bids into the system, we do have a budgeted price that we're expecting it to come in, and it's based on our research on trying to put, you know, together what we're looking for and exactly the specs and things that we want. So we do put in a budgetary price that we believe that it shouldn't come in, you know, above this or in this neighborhood, and so if it does, for example, I mean, we've had several in the past where we've thrown out bids because they've come in well over what our estimate of what the cost was. Matter of fact, y'all just approved tonight the dance review programs in the very beginning. That one was actually rebid a second time because of that reason. When we initially bid it, our estimate on the price was about $3,000, and we came back. They had 1 or 2 bidders, and the lowest price was more than double that, $6,000. Right. So we basically, for budgetary reasons, we couldn't accept that bid. We threw it out, rebid it, and then, you know, we got somebody to come in that. So to answer your question, we kind of do that when we put the specs together and put it into the system. But I mean, as far as to have
So
more of an official type of way.
I don't know,
I
just
mean,
so the council kind of knows that this is coming in at budget or below budget.
And I can
That's
tell you,
all.
in this
I
project.
don't know it. Yeah.
Right, in this project, the budget for that was between 40 and 45,000.
So we're right at
So
budget.
we're right at where we were
Which
estimating.
is fine. But I only have that issue when, like I said, when you have 5 people bidding on it.
Right.
Yeah, obviously,
No, I
you know,
definitely
that's the
understand.
market, right? But when I have one person bidding on it, I really don't know what the market is.
Right, I definitely understand, and I can talk to Teresa and, you know, maybe.
And that's for all the
city
departments.
attorney, right.
When it's a particular piece of equipment.
Okay.
Well, a tractor or whatever it may be. It would just help me with
I
my
definitely
decisions.
understand.
That's all. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, hearing no other discussion, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15D is summary ordinance number 11,523. An ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Lumber Products Incorporated to supply building materials on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 13-6131 in an amount not to exceed $75,000 per year for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilwoman Brannigan, second by Councilwoman DeFrancis. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15E is summary ordinance number 11,524. An ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Task Force LLC in the amount of $288,415 for repairs at the Laketown Fishing Pier in accordance with seal bid number 13-6130 for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilwoman Black. Councilman Reno.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Quigley, the bid that came in on this, the funds we are using are Laketown funds to pay for this, correct?
Hopefully just 25%, because this is a FEMA PW that we've had FEMA come out and do the inspection and write it up and everything, but we're hoping at the end of the day this will be 25%.
Right.
You know, we have every reason to believe that FEMA is going to do the other 75%, yes.
They haven't,
But the 25% will come from the, yes, from the hotel motel dedicated to Laketown.
right, but all of it's going to come out of that account now, and
Yes,
then
and be
once we get
reimbursed.
reimbursed, then that account will be reimbursed.
That is correct.
Okay, I want to say thanks too, because I've gotten so many calls, not just from people in District 3, but from all over the city, asking about, you know, when the fishing pier is going to be repaired. Time frame in having this work completed is about what?
I think the actual time frame on the project is going to be about 120 days.
Okay.
From the time it starts, but not necessarily meaning that that's how long it's going to take. To kind of clarify this a little bit more, on this project, we're actually also enhancing the pier by extending the length of the pier itself before we start the transition to the land area, because that's what happened in this case when the hurricane came. All the rocks came up and crushed the approaches to the pier. Because of the angle they were on, they didn't have the support underneath it. So we're actually extending the pier over land one more section. So that's, in addition, they'll have to drive the pylons and do the things out there in the new section. So that's why the additional dates are there. But it is, hopefully, once this passes and we get the contracts in place, you know, hopefully we can get them started right away.
Right, and I've reviewed all this. I'm just trying to get it out so the public knows. And the foundations that we're putting, those entrance walkways to get it, you know, where before it gets on to the water when it's on the ground, that's all, the piling system and everything is a lot more than what they had there before.
Correct.
I also understand that all of the electrical is going to be moved up higher because we lost all of our lighting and all of that stuff because the wiring was underneath, and they're going to raise that above.
Right, actually, we're not only just raising it up to the level, we're actually going to try to shield it by the pier itself. So instead of being under where it kind of hung down originally, we're moving all the electrical and the water lines to the edges of the pier, so that we can kind of have some kind of protection where it's anchored to the pier itself instead of being hung down where they'll have any room for play or damage if the waves get high. we're hoping that will improve. There may be some damage, but it may not be as massive as what happened in this case.
Yeah, I had talked to the engineers. I
Yes.
mean, they feel like it'd be minimal damage
Right.
if there is any damage.
And actually, we're also changing the lighting that shines into the lake. That's going to be now LED lights instead of metal halide, I believe is what it is now. So
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Stagney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, Mr. Ronnie Schmidt called me and asked me the exact same questions, time frame, and you've said 120 days.
about 120 days.
He's one of those people that go out there, and I've received a substantial amount of calls. Are there any other mitigation repairs that you're doing outside of what you've already explained?
No, actually, I mean, there's some other things that we're going to look at. We're looking at some different grants that we could do. The biggest problem we have out at that area is, the riprap is the entire peninsula, is all the riprap from the different construction and concrete. And what happened was when the waves came in, it picked that up and moved it. We spoke to several different agencies trying to get a grant to maybe like sheet pile it so it has more of a solid, break rather than being able to move the concrete there. So we're looking into that. But in the pier itself, I believe that's the extent of the mitigation that we're doing in this one.
Well, I know everybody's waiting on this one, so I was glad to see it, and I'm glad we're moving.
One of the biggest things, I know it seemed like it took a long time, but we had to get a structural engineer out there to make sure every one of the pins that pin the concrete slab to the pylons and things were intact, and the way that happened. So it wasn't just that we haven't been working on this, it's just been that it's taken a long time for the structural engineers to get out there and physically look at every pinhole and every crack to make sure that it was all secure.
And I wanted to thank Councilman Reno for staying on top of this as well, because I've kind of gone to him to ask him a bunch of questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no other discussion, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15F is summary ordinance number 11,525, an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from New Light Electrical Wholesalers, LLC, for an annual contract to supply aluminum tapered and decorative street light poles on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 13-6135, and an amount not to exceed $25,000 per year for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilwoman Brannigan, second by Councilman Denopoulos. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15G is summary ordinance number 11,526, an ordinance authorizing the administration to utilize the existing bid with Jefferson Parish Traffic Engineering with 3M Company as per contract number 55-12764 for reflective sheeting on an as-needed basis not to exceed $50,000 annually for a period concurrent with Jefferson Parish contract for the City of Kenner Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilman Denopoulos, second by Councilman Carroll. Councilman Denopoulos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jerry, if you can answer this question, is this also the reflective taping that goes on the grounds as well, on the streets as well? This 3M contract?
The 3M material is strictly for the signs, for street
Strictly
signs, stop
signs?
yes.
Has nothing to do with what we lay down on the
I
streets?
don't believe it's anything to do with the striping on the road.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Councilman Denopoulos. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15H is summary ordinance number 11,528, an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from LAS Enterprises Incorporated in the amount of $53,954 to furnish and install motorized roll-down shutters for the Emergency Operations Center in accordance with seal bid number 13-6128.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Reno. Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Madam President. And I guess this is for Mr. Dillon call for Mr. Jose. Will these shutters protect the entire building, first floor, second floor, all around the building, or are they just for the the windows facing Reverend Richard Wilson?
Because of limited funding, these shutters that we're going to be installing are going to be protecting the entire second floor on the north side and the front and rear doors. As more funds become available, we would go ahead and bid for additional shutters.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Councilman Stagney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. McConnell and Mr. Gonzalez, in what account is the funding coming out of?
That was money in the capital budget for this year?
That we passed last year. Did we ever use any of the energy money for the panels? The solar panels, the windows?
Yeah, we use some of it for that, yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Denopoulos, did you wish to speak?
Mr. Quigley, if you look at the tally sheet on 15H, this is something you and I had this discussion earlier this evening about. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 non-responsive. I don't know why they're non-responsive. There's no notes or comments.
That means they did not submit a bid. There was no response.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that I also see a no bid. So what's the difference between a no bid and no response and not, I mean,
Well,
what's
if
the
you,
difference?
if you look at the previous bid,
Yeah.
where it says Gray Bar Electric, where it says comments, non-responsive, error on bid form, not initialed or dated, and sent only copy of bid bond. They were non-responsive. That means they submitted a bid, but the city deemed them non-responsive. In the situation you were just describing,
Right.
they didn't submit anything.
Anything at all. So it was a no bid basis.
Correct.
Thank you.
Hearing no other discussion, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance amending Section 15-21 of the Kenner Code of Ordinances to add a stop sign southbound at the intersection of Ruth St. Peter and Champ-Ulysses. Item 16B is an ordinance authorizing an increase of $50,000 per year to the maximum annual contract amount for the contract with Brotherhood Way General Contractors, LLC, to provide labor only for carpentry work at various facilities on an as-needed basis for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16C is an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from BLD Services, LLC, in the amount of $1,128,890 for the Vintage and Medoc Force Main project in accordance with seal bid number 12-6104 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16D is an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Cintas Corporation Number 2 for an annual contract to lease uniforms in accordance with seal bid number 13-6133 in an amount not to exceed $20,000 per year for the Department of Public Works. Item 16E is an ordinance accepting the quote in the amount of $5,700 from River Country Rescue, a sole source provider, to purchase the Hearst Cutter JL 500, an essential piece of equipment needed to perform vehicle extractions for the Kenner Fire Department. Item 16F is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Peretz on an annual contract to supply polo-style sleeve shirts in accordance with telephone bid number T13-2000 and an amount not to exceed $6,500 annually for the Kenner Police Department. Item 16G is an ordinance authorizing a public hearing and approving the proposed fiscal year 2013 annual action plan of the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program in the amount of $411,019 and the Home Investment Partnership Home Program Grant in the amount of $143,645 for the Community Development Department. Item 16H is an ordinance adopting the operating budget for the City of Kenner for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2013 and ending June 30th, 2014, and amending ordinance number 7549. Item 16I is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into lease agreements for the use of Veterans Memorial Boulevard right-of-way by adjacent property owners. Item 17 is reports from the council and/or special committees.
The only, I don't see anybody that's signed up right now, but I just want to mention to you that Saturday is a very important election for the city of Kenner, where you'll be electing a new judge for our area. So I'd ask everybody to go out and vote this Saturday. The polls now open at 6 or 7. 7. And so get out and vote early before you start getting your phone calls. Any other persons wishing to? Councilman Stagney?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to add to that there are going to be 3 other things. 2 precincts in Kenner have the judge, but everybody else in Kenner will have 3 other items on: the Crescent City tolls, operation and maintenance of the water system in Jefferson Parish, and also operation and maintenance of the school system through the school board. So those will be 3 other items on the ballot. Please get out and exercise your right to vote. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Carroll?
Thank you, Madam President. And Mr. Maricoli, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this Friday starts our Music in the Park, and the name of the band is the Yak Pack. So with if the weather permits, hopefully keep your fingers crossed, please come out to the Music in the Park. It is always a festive activity, get a chance to see a lot of your friends and have a good time and some good music. Thank you, Madam President.
And the Yat Pack is a group from years back when they had Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and all of that. In case you people out there who are too young to know who the Yat Pack are, I'm looking at somebody out in the audience. I know she knows what I'm talking about. But they're fun and they have very talented. So I hope that everybody comes out to see it and that the weather holds up. Councilman Denopoulos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While we're on the topic of reports and things, I will tell you that we had a meeting today at the Joe Yenny Building, Councilwoman DeFrancis and I, and also the administration, Mike Quigley and Jose Gonzalez was there, and a host of engineers from the airport in Jefferson Parish to discuss further talking about the drainage issues that we have in Kenner as it relates to the impact of the airport. I can tell you that meeting was very fruitful today. I think we actually came to a conclusion that, that the airport is going to move in the right direction to looking at the impact at the current level of drainage that the airport has in Kenner, and also what that impact's going to be with the possible north terminal that's also going to happen in Kenner. Because once again, when we do have an event, a rainfall like we've had on May 3rd, 5th, and 8th of this month, basically those rainfalls impact our canal system so badly that the water from Lincoln Manor, the water from University City and Grand Lake literally has to go to our Duncan Canal Station and cannot even use the outfall canal that we have because the force of water running off the airport impacts the canal system that bad. So I will tell you that it was a very enlightening meeting, and I tell you that from District 5 and District 1 and District 4, we're going to make sure that we're at the table at those discussions to make sure that the drainage issues of the past are also handled as well as the drainage issues of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Reynaud.
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to remind people that the Driftwood Park Civic Association is having a family splash day May 11th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and it's open to everyone in the Driftwood Park area. Also, there is a Driftwood Park Country Club crawfish cook-off on May 19th, which Ms. Jeannie Black is going to be one of our cooks, well, with the help of some other people, and as well as...
I'm a better taster.
You're going to be a taster. But I just wanted to remind people of that. And finally, next week I celebrate 1 year on this council. And first of all, I want to thank God. I want to thank my family, especially my wife, for putting up with me in this year. And the citizens of District 3 for allowing me to represent them on this council. All my council colleagues up here, and y'all have really, each one of them, I call Miss Jeannie the matriarch, and Mother Hen, she's always giving me advice, but everybody does, and it's really great. I want to thank all the ladies on the third floor, especially my assistant Darrell and Natalie and Teresa, because they've also helped me all the way. The mayor and the entire administration, especially all of the directors, from Keith Connolly to Ken Maricoli, Tamithia Shaw, Jose Gonzalez, Jerry Dillenkofer I talk to all the time. I think he's my new best friend, but all of y'all. And I just, I really just want to thank you. This is truly a new chapter in my life, and I really appreciate all the friendships that I've made and everything. And just thanks from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you. Councilwoman DeFrancis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. I just have to go back on with a few comments based on Councilman Denopoulos' mention of the meeting today. First of all, thanks. I want to thank Councilman Benzon for putting that meeting together. Mr. Ithakar Ahmad from the airport director was there. In addition, we had a representative from Mayor Landrieu's office. We had Mr. Quigley from the administration, and Mr. Jose Gonzalez was there. We had Mr. Denopoulos and myself attended as well. And I can tell you we had all of the engineers there, from the engineers that are working directly with the airport as well as digital and others. And we had a representative from Jefferson Parish, Mr. Terrio. Again, it was a very fruitful meeting. We are looking out for the people of Kenner. We want progress. The airport means progress, but at the same time, not at the expense of our people. And so we have made it very clear that we all want to work together. These two issues of moving the airport forward has to be addressed at the same time that the drainage issues are addressed. And we have gotten commitments that that will occur. So I just want to let the people of Kenner know that this administration, this council, as well as our Jefferson Parish representatives are working together to make sure that this city moves forward, the airport moves forward, and that the people of Kenner are well protected, and that the issues that have plagued some of the portions, I would say, of Kenner for so long will now be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brannigan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I know Councilmember Carroll mentioned about the music in the park on Friday nights, but we also have the movies starting on Saturday nights. What's this week's movie?
Ice Age.
Ice Age 4, coming from a mom. I've never seen that. So that's on Saturday nights in the same area down in Rivertown, so please come out for that. Thank you.
Councilman Stagney.
Thank you, Madam President. When before the Mayor Landrieu and his announcement saying that they were going to move the terminal to the north side, all of us met with Mayor Landrieu, representatives of his office, our mayor, and council members. And in that meeting, he did commit that he would do everything that needed to be done. He committed to that then. He seemed to be open to any of the changes that need to be made to protect the city of Kenner. And if there are going to be future meetings, the airport is located in District 1, Lincoln Manor, an important subdivision that has some stormwater runoff maybe. And my district abuts the eastern side of the airport. We'd love to be a part of that conversation, and I would ask if Councilman Zahn set up that meeting to please extend an invitation to those council members who are actually touching the airport or actually where the airport is located. That's important for all of us to be a part of this conversation and to represent the citizens of our city. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Stagney. Moving right along, Council Clerk.
Yes, ma'am. Item 18 is new business. Item 18A, at the request of Councilmember Reyno, an executive session regarding a letter dated April 23, 2013 from G. Tripp Hawthorne, partner at Keene Miller Attorneys at Law.
Okay. We will now adjourn to executive session.
If I could get a motion and a second.
Motion by Councilman Reyno, second by Councilman Black. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
so hungry. We're welcome back. Council Clerk.
Yes, ma'am. We will continue to item 19, which is unfinished business and motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. Item 19A is the reconsideration of ordinance number 10,573, an ordinance accepting the lowest bid received from Simsco Incorporated for a 2-year contract not to exceed $100,000 per year to supply PVC pipe and fittings for the City of Kenner on an as-needed basis for the City of Kenner, adopted by the Kenner City Council on April 18, 2013, and subsequently vetoed by Mayor Yenny on April 25, 2013. Madam Chairman, I've received a request, and I'd like a motion in accordance with Council Rule 39 to suspend Council Rule number 50, please.
Okay. Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilwoman DeFrancis. Please vote. Oh, Councilman Carroll, did you wish to speak? Okay. Councilman Stagney, did you wish to speak? One moment. Councilman Stagney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Roussel, you're acting as a city attorney. Under the veto procedure under the charter, can you read section 3.14? Yes. It's not very long.
Okay. Section 3.14 entitled Veto reads, "All ordinances and resolutions vetoed by the mayor shall be vetoed in full, except that the mayor may exercise line item vetoes on any items in the operating or capital budgets. The veto of the mayor cannot be overridden by the council until the next regular meeting of the council following the veto. At the next regular meeting, a two-thirds vote of the entire authorized membership of the council shall be sufficient to override the mayor's veto. This section shall not apply to the veto of emergency ordinances adopted under section 2.25.
And your opinion is that we can use council rules to change the rules not to vote on the veto procedure, even though it's listed in the charter and it says that a certain amount shall be enough to override or not be enough to override. It being in the charter, you think the council rules, by just suspending them, is a way to get around the veto procedure?
Well, I think that the council can suspend its rules by a two-thirds vote, and Rule 50 provides the procedure for overriding the mayor's veto.
Right, it asks the question, but this provision of the charter, you do not believe that that mandates that we take a vote on the veto?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilman Carroll, did you still wish, because you accused, okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hearing no other discussion on the motion, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-1. Councilmember Stagney is opposed.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, at this time, I would like a motion and a second, if I could please, to remove item 19A.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilwoman DeFrancis. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-1. Councilmember Stagney is opposed. Item 19B, at the request of Councilmember Reno, the reconsideration of ordinance number 10,573, an ordinance accepting the lowest bid received from Simsco Incorporated for a 2-year contract not to exceed $100,000 per year to supply PVC pipe and fittings for the City of Kenner on an as-needed basis, adopted by the Kenner City Council on April 18, 2013, and subsequently vetoed by Mayor Mike Yenny on April 25, 2013. Madam Chairman, I need a motion and a second to put the item on the floor for reconsideration, please.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilwoman Black. Councilman Reno.
Madam Chairman, I'm sorry, but there will be no discussion. We need to put the item on the floor for reconsideration.
Oh, it's just to put it on the
There's
floor.
no
Pardon my
debate.
mistake.
There's no,
That's correct.
there's no debate. We just vote and get it on the floor for reconsideration first.
Thank you.
I don't know. Wait a minute.
Well, Rule 33 under reconsideration says that the motion to reconsider shall be, it's non-debatable motion. So you just. Okay. A procedural question. You can do that.
Just a point of clarification.
So
She just
Councilman
wants to make a
Brannigan
point of
wants to ask a
clarification.
question on clarification. Yes. You have
Thank you,
the
Madam
floor.
Chairman. So, for clarification, we need to vote this up or down to reconsider?
This is to put
You
on
would
the
have,
agenda. This is to-
if you vote yes, you're putting the item on the floor for reconsideration. If you vote no, you're opposed to putting it on the floor for reconsideration.
That's correct.
Guess I can't ask the second part.
So this is the third vote we're actually taking.
Okay.
You need a motion to reconsider to get it before the body for
Okay.
debate.
Well, then I'll ask it the next go-around.
Thank you. So the motion is by Councilman Reno, second by Councilwoman Black, to put this item on the agenda for reconsideration.
On the floor for reconsideration, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Ordinance number 10,573, an ordinance accepting the lowest bid received from Semsco Incorporated for a 2-year contract not to exceed $100,000 per year to supply PVC pipe and fittings for the city of Kenner on an as-needed basis.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilman DeFrancis. Councilman Reno.
Thank you, Madam President. Since we originally approved this, I'm now going to ask that we not approve it and ask the administration to throw all of the bids out and rebid this contract. Based on everything that's in the bid specs, it's very ambiguous on a lot of the language that's in there, and that's the reason why I wanted to vote originally to give it to Semsco, because they were the low bidder. So I could actually go through line item for line item, but I'm not going to do that tonight, you know. There are a lot of things in the bid specs, and we have asked, and we are going to continue to ask, that our bid specs be cleaned up. So I'm going to hopefully ask all of y'all to vote this down. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Reno. Councilman Stagney.
Thank you, Madam President. This was an item that Mr. Reno brought up to us several meetings ago, brought up some very legitimate points on this bid. As we went back and researched a previous bid on the same item, the language was somewhat ambiguous and it was convoluted. And as we discussed all of this, we're at a point now where we want to get rid of this and rebid it for a number of reasons. Some of us, or at least this body, this councilman disagreed on how we got here, but nevertheless, we were all united in the fact that there are some problems with this that we need to rebid it. And to show that that's already started to take place, the purchasing department now is putting only the language applicable to the bid itself in there, because it is somewhat confusing, and this started recently. So I think there's justification for the mayor to do what he did. There's justification for this council to do what we did. And we both see problems, and I'm certain that that is why the purchasing department has started to change on how they're doing their bids. Again, not having a hodgepodge of language in there and asking the bidder to match this number with this language. This makes it much, much easier. I commend the purchasing department for putting that into place. It was something that we all talked about doing as this procedure went forward. So I'm going to vote to either vote this down, or I thought Mr. Reno was going to make a motion to indefinitely defer, killing it. However we decide to do that, I'm going to vote to make sure that this goes out for another bid, and let's hope that the bid comes back very good. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilwoman DeFrancis, you have the floor.
Thank you, and actually, Councilman Stagney already touched on it. I was going to say sometimes from something negative, something positive comes out, and I do believe something positive has come out of this. First of all, I want to tell you, I know the purchasing department has worked very hard. They've made many changes, in the last couple of years as well, to make sure that the bids are that the bidding procedure is as appropriate as possible. But sometimes, people look at things different ways, and sometimes the way some of our bidders are looking at our specs sometimes may be different from the way we intended them to look at those very same specs. And so ambiguity has unfortunately reared its ugly head in this instance and in many other instances. And so because of that, again, I have to commend our purchasing department, the administration, and Councilman Reno, because without him, none of this would have come about, that we're now relooking and re-examining our specs and making sure that they are appropriate, that these kind of ambiguities will not continue in the future. So when we get bids come to this council, that we can feel confident in moving forward at that time. So again, let me go back again. Something positive has come out of all this, and I am very proud of this council and the administration for working together. And Councilman Reno, thank you for all your hard effort on this on behalf, and the administration for working with this council to, again, right the situation and move forward in the most positive way possible.
Thank you, Councilwoman DeFrancis. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And just to echo Councilwoman DeFrancis, I'd like to, thank Councilman Reno because, by him digging into this and looking into this, it makes us all better as far as it relates to our responsibility to the citizens of Kenner. The purchasing department will be a better organization, and that's, you want to use the term cleaning things up, that will work. And I think on our half in the administration, a better line of communication, because I think that's what was needed. And I think from this point forward, better communications will avoid any type of misunderstanding or maybe future situations that we come to. So, Councilman Reno, thanks again for all your hard work. I appreciate this. And we are much better now since you put this into play. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Councilman Denopoulos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was going to ask Teresa a question or two, if you don't mind. Once again, we as a council definitely want people to participate in the bid process. We want to encourage them, to come forth and do bids. In this instance, because basically, that we as an administration, as a council, decided to rebid this, can we actually send a note to these three companies that did respond originally on this bid and ask them to please encourage them to come back and bid on this bid? Is that possible? Beg them, because with all this going on, if I was one of the companies, I might just throw my hands up and says, I'm not coming to bid, City of Kenner anymore. And I would just like to have a little extra encouragement because, like you said, they have responded in the past. They are waiting on who's going to win this bid. Now we're going to throw it out, okay, which I think is the correct thing to do, okay? But I like to just get a little extra encouragement. If you give me their phone numbers, I'll even personally call them, okay?
Actually, if the bid's getting thrown out, I have to send letters.
Great.
To all three of them, letting them know the bid has been thrown out. I need to know why it has been thrown out, and that we will rebid it again.
And encourage them as much as possible. Yes, and that's great.
And I do that, I just want y'all to know. I do that on any bid that's been rejected by a department or thrown out for some reason. I send the vendors a letter.
Right.
Telling them why and asking them to please respond when we bid it out again.
Well, Teresa, I think that's a good procedure you have, and I encourage it because, like, once again, when people put through all this effort to come in and bid, and all of a sudden, 2 months later, it's thrown out, and we're going to rebid it again. I mean, it's just a little extra encouragement that we want to give them to come back to our city and do business with our city. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilman Denopoulos. And I just want to say as brief as I possibly can, because I think that we've beat a dead horse already. But, You know, we up here, the 7 of us are not perfect. The mayor's not perfect. The city attorney's not perfect. I don't think there's anybody in this room who's perfect. And I'm looking around real hard. But it takes a big person to, when they say, okay, we made a mistake. This is not the correct thing to do. The mayor felt like he had to do something. This council felt like we had to try and save money if we had a lower bidder. We tried to do everything we could, and it just didn't work out. So now we found a new avenue, a new way to go. Hey, let's throw all of that out. Let's take everything back, you know. Give us a couple of mulligans or something, you know, if it were a golf game. And let's start fresh, and let's do what's right. And this is what this council is going to do. So it takes a big person to say, hey, I was wrong, but I want to make it right. And that's what this council is trying to do. So, Mayor Yenny, you have your light on.
Yes, I just want to, I want to thank Councilman Reno for pointing out the problems we may have that we're going to correct, and we're going to make sure we move forward in the right footing. I'm going to get the city attorney's office involved with the purchasing director to make sure all that's cleared up and there's no more problems. You know, when we revamped the purchasing department about 4 or 5 years ago, we did a lot more than was previously done. You know, if you look at what we're required to give the council when it comes to purchases, we have always been overly transparent and given a lot more information from previous administrations forward. We started that under Mayor Muniz's administration, and we've continued that. And we're going to continue doing that, and this is probably one little thing we overlook, but we follow the same standard form that's regionally in this area that's accepted. So, but we're going to make it better by putting what's required to be on those forms. So I thank you all for pointing that out, and I thank you all. I certainly don't want to say that Councilman Reno or myself was wrong, but maybe we're just a little short on being right.
Okay. No, it's consensus. Mayor, you were wrong. I mean, that goes without saying. That's just what Councilman Brannigan just said. But I just want to say, good job, rookie. He always says, you know, I'm the rookie on this council. But sometimes, you know, younger thoughts come from people who are new, and that's what we need. So obviously that's why I'm retiring next year. But I thank you, and stop cheering, Mr. Denopoulos. But anyway, thank you, Keith. You did a great job, and we're going to settle this, and we're going to take care of business as we should. So, with that, we have the legislation on, and so a nay vote would be to remove this and rebid it. Is that correct? A yay bid would mean to let it stand. So, I'm going to ask the council. Ask the city attorney, am I correct?
That's right. A nay vote would be voting the legislation to award it to Sims Code down.
Okay, so that means it goes out for rebid. If you vote no, if you vote yay, that means to keep it as it is. Okay? Please vote. Clear as mud? As somebody used to love to say, hear me say, clear as mud, huh?
Madam Chairman, motion fails 0-7. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Yes, we have a few. Mr. Al Morello. The first person had to leave.
All right.
She'd love to.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 41 years. I got a couple of comments. I want to comment on a couple of mishaps that occurred in the city of Kenner on 2 construction sites. One of them was on April the 16th on Vintage between Ole Miss and Chateau Boulevard. Construction crews out there, it appeared that they hit a water main, busted a water main or a water line. I happened to be coming back from the store and was coming down Vintage and saw the water shooting up in the air. I understand that Public Works had to go out there and clean up the mess. So, but I just wanted to know who was held accountable, exactly what happened, who took responsibility for that mishap. The second one occurred where the theater is being constructed outside the Esplanade Mall. Construction crews over there, I was told ruptured a gas line. And they had 3 eateries in the Esplanade Mall. I was in there that day, and I saw them shut down, and I started talking to some people, and they had told me that those 3 eateries were shut down for 2 days because of a ruptured gas line. Now, once again, I want to know who's been held accountable for that, who speaks for those businesses, and what are we going to do as far as those businesses being shut down for 2 days. Now, that was 2 days when I went in there. I hadn't been in there since that day. That was on the 25th of April. So I don't know when they came back online, when they went opened up again. I have no idea. But maybe Mr. Franchise, Councilwoman DeFranchise can tell us. Okay. One other thing, I'm looking at the circulation of the Advocate. I know now it's locally owned, but I noticed that the Circle K's and the Exxons and unincorporated Jefferson have the circulation of the New Orleans Advocate, New Orleans edition, and the Walgreens and unincorporated Jefferson. But none of those outlets back here in Kenner carry that publication. I'd like to know why. If somebody on the council, somebody in the government here can explain it to me, or maybe Mr. Powell, I just find it funny how these stores in unincorporated Jefferson carry it, but the stores in Kenner, those same stores in Kenner don't. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morello. Mr. Ed Lancaster? He was here earlier. Did he leave? Okay. Mr. Walt Bonetti?
Thank you, Council President. Walt Bonetti, 3009 Illinois Avenue in Councilman Stagney's district. I just wanted to encourage everyone to vote Saturday and vote against the tolls, vote no on the tolls. I'd also like to publicly thank Councilman DeNapolis, Councilman Reyno, Councilwoman Brannigan, Councilman Carroll, and my councilman, Councilman Stagney, for their public support of the No Tolls movement. At a press conference today, Jefferson Parish President John Young was there, along with Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser and State Treasurer John Kennedy. And all of them said that this is an unfair, unneeded, unnecessary tax. And I'd like everyone to strongly support and vote no on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonetti. Patricia Davis?
Patricia Davis, 3126 Ohio Street. On last evening, there was a tragic accident in the Lincoln Manor area. And now I feel as though that I'm more committed to helping to remove blight and to reduce crime in our area. And for that reason, I'm asking that the council propose some type of ordinance, an emergency type of ordinance that will remove or demolish blighted houses and buildings that are within so many feet of playgrounds and schools. So we want to improve the quality of life in Kenner. And when something goes on in one area, it affects the entire Kenner area because your name is being, misused. Also, I would like to thank Councilman Mark Spears and the Jefferson Parish Recreation Department for the funds that they have allocated to the Lincoln Manor Gym that will be controlled by Mr. Quigley. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Frank Sitar? Wellington Lane? He's not here. Okay, Mr. Mohammed? Mr. Kedhun? Tax schedule. Mr. Richard Brown?
Thank you, Madam President. I signed in this time.
You did? I'm proud of you.
I also want to, Richard Brown, 824 Sessions Lane, Kenner. I also want to urge people to please vote this Saturday, May 4th. I know that's Jazz Fest Day, so if you're going to Jazz Fest, please vote early or leave Jazz Fest in time to vote. And I've got just a few more reasons I want to elaborate on in addition to what Mr. Benetti said. But of course, as I hope everybody knows, the bridge is paid for. We have paid for that bridge. We were promised the tolls would end when it was paid for, so it's time for them to end. Also, a lot of people may or may not know that due to a recent change in the law, even if the tolls were to be put back on, the toll money cannot be used to support the ferries. The ferries are going to have to be supported independently, so voting for the tolls doesn't do a thing to help the ferries. The ferries will be funded one way or the other, with or without tolls. And the bridge will be maintained. We pay 20 cents per gallon gas tax for every gallon of gas we buy, which goes to the Department of Transportation to maintain our highways and bridges. The Department of Transportation will maintain the Crescent City connection just like it maintains all the other bridges in the state, with or without the tolls. And in fact, the amount of gas tax paid just for the time it takes to cross the bridge, just while you're on the bridge, that 20 cents a gallon is more than enough to maintain the bridge. So the bridge is going to be maintained. It's not going to fall into the river. And I think a lot of people know by now, a lot of the toll money that's been collected for the last 20 years has been used in other projects all over the state rather than on the Crescent City connection, and we have no promise that that's going to change. There's millions of dollars in escrow right now already to help for maintenance, for lighting, for other things. It amounts to double taxation. There's no reason that we here in Jefferson Parish and in New Orleans and Plaquemines Parish should have the only bridge in the state, the only Mississippi River bridge in the state with tolls on it. Nobody else has tolls. The bridges are all maintained. Ours is paid for, and I urge people to vote no on the Crescent City connection tolls, and let's end this double taxation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Some good comments. I think that's about it. Wait, Ms. Natalie Newton, you have the floor.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to elaborate on the announcement of music and movies in the park. No one in Kenner will be able to say there's nothing to do in May in Kenner. Music and movies in the park. Music in the park is every Friday in May from 6:30 to 9:30, and movies in the park is every Saturday in May starting at 8. Also, we have the Farmers Market this weekend from 8 to noon. Wednesday, May 8th at 7 p.m. at the Kenner Pavilion, we have Articure benefiting the American Cancer Society. Tickets are $10, and we found out our celebrity auctioneer is going to be Jim Hanzo. Also, the Castle Theater, in addition to shows, also has a Mother's Day function in the evening if you haven't thought about mom yet. And Rivertown Theaters has Gypsy this month. And final announcement is the District 1 listening session as part of the Kenner 2030 plan will be on May 29th at Heritage Hall, 7:30 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. I'm calling them out by order. Councilwoman DeFrancis.
We're going to do this very quickly. Mr. Gonzalez, would you or Mr. Dillenkoffer like to answer Mr. Morello's questions? I know for a fact that I spoke with the people at the mall when the incident happened with the gas line. And one of the problems, Kenner is an older city, and too often where the actual gas lines and water lines and drainage lines are supposed to be, where they're marked according to, the information we have is not where they actually are. And that's what happened in that instance. So, and I know for about 3 hours, Mr. Morello, most of the mall was closed for about 3 hours. The majority was, were able to reopen. Places like Cafe du Monde, which where they have the gas stoves, took much longer, obviously. But I wanted Mr. Dillenkoffer or Mr. Gonzalez to actually answer the question, other than just to tell you that the lines aren't where they're supposed to be. Go ahead.
I can answer the question with regards to the water line that was busted as a result of a drainage project that we're performing out there with a maintenance contractor. I believe he's referring to a water line, that was broken as a result of either being too shallow or not in the right place.
Exactly.
And that was done by our drainage contractor. At such time, our drainage contractor contacted the Jefferson Parish Water Department. Now, the Jefferson Parish water personnel showed up on the site. Their trucks look very similar to our trucks. So there's a possibility that there was some confusion out there as to who was out there trying to fix the water line, because they were there shutting valves in order to be able to repair the water line. So the water line was repaired based on a joint venture between Jefferson Parish Water Department and our contractor. And that's what happened with the water line at Vintage and Chateau Talbot. With regards to the ongoing work by the movie theater, I'm not aware as to what happened there or the circumstances.
I will tell you too, Mr. Gonzalez, that when we had the problem on Bordeaux for the second time in a couple of years, where again the water line broke because of the subsidence and the quality, unfortunately, of the subsurface was not great. I can tell you that I was out there personally, and that we were able to get Jefferson Parish to come out there immediately. I contacted Mr. Jerry Dillenkoffer, and his staff came out with the little Charlie horses, whatever, to block off the street to make sure that there was no danger. I called the police department. They immediately sent some officers out to block those streets so that no one would be injured, and we were able to quickly get that problem addressed as well. So this cooperative effort has been going on, for quite some time. And again, remember, the mall is private property, Mr.
That's correct.
Mr. Morella, I was just talking to you, I'm sorry. The mall is actually private property. And they did call them out and show them exactly where the lines were, but again, the line was not where it was supposed to be, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll, Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'm going to be addressing this to Ms. Davis, but to everyone in the room and in the city of Kenner, I'd like to thank Ms. Davis for her commitment and her support to the Lincoln Manor subdivision and the Lincoln Manor Civic Association. They've been doing a fantastic job. But more importantly, my condolences go out to the family of the young man, 19 years old, that was murdered a couple of days ago. The Lincoln Manor subdivision is one of the oldest subdivisions in the city of Kenner, and for the last month, a couple of incidents has happened that really has rocked the neighborhood and have all of the people who live there concerned. This is a conversation that I will be having with the chief to ensure is there something that we can do to, not to let something to start, because, as growing up as a little boy, it really wasn't, you didn't hear about this type of thing going on. But the world has changed and a lot of things have changed, so none of us can expect things to stay the same, but we have to do what we can do to stop anything to happen in the future. The code department, Ms. Davis, as it relates to trying to change the ordinance, there are rules always as it relates to the playgrounds and the schools, what you can and can't do within so many feet. As far as the code is concerned, and Ms. Shaw can correct me, but if a property is deemed a safety hazard or a crime hazard or a place where will breed criminal activity, it can be put on a priority list to address that above something that may be deemed less of a safety issue. So I'm not sure if we have to put an ordinance in, but Ms. Attorney Shaw, am I correct in saying that from your department, this is something that we can focus on if there is a concern?
We can look at it. I actually had a meeting in Lincoln Manor, and I know Ms. Davis's concern was one of the houses that's on our blighted property that has some federal issues. We are maintaining the grass, but at that time the grass wasn't cut and the child was passing, and her concern was if someone would have pulled that child in, no one would even known that child was in there. There are special rules that are applicable to within so many yards or feet of school grounds and play yards, but we do try to address those first as a priority, like you said. But we're going to look at the issue and see how we can take care of those for the future.
Well, thank you, Attorney Shaw. And I also ask that from the community and really all over the city, if you see something that's out of order, please call into the code or call the police department, because if you don't say anything, then it's not going to help the situation. You can be upset about it, but you have to call in and let the police department know, let the code department know, even call Mr. Maricola Recreation, because he have a maintenance staff that can correct things. So it takes the due diligence of the community to pass on this information so we can help correct it. Thank you, Attorney Shaw. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. And I just would like to mention that today I attended, and Councilwoman DeFrancis attended the 62nd National Day of Prayer. And the city of Kenner issued a proclamation from the mayor, commending that we were one city out of 47,000 throughout the nation that celebrated the National Day of Prayer. And it was prayer for our nation. As you know, since 2001, our country has been under attack by people who wish to hurt us. And we have done so much for other countries, and so we need to pray for our own country and pray that the terrorist activities in our country cease, and that we can become one nation under God, indivisible once again. So I ask you to please continue in your prayers for the United States of America. We need it. We need to pray for our safety, for not only ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren. So thank you. And with that, we have a motion to adjourn.